I was gonna open with a joke about Akatosh, but it's pretty dated. What's going on, YouTube? It's Friday. We're inside the Hollow City, inside of Cold Harbor, to go over our first of 2 weekend vendors, but also a thank you for those of you who joined me at 4 a.m. today, all the way till 7 a.m. when we streamed ESO 10 Fest on Twitch. Unfortunately, as you guys know, I had to get a weird time slot because of my dental surgery and how that interrupted my schedule. So thank you for stopping by and being there. But we have some really cool items this week. I always tell you, Ayleid stuff. The Ayleids might not know how to exist into the 3rd era or the 2nd era, but they knew their architecture. Then these two, this panel as well as this Ayleid sconce, this is a fantastic item. Now, obviously, if you wanted to buy these items, you could use it for yourself, try to resell them in the future, but these are pretty cool. These constellations are pretty cool as well. I think I could be mistaken, but when I needed to make a whole, a puzzle, a jump puzzle, if you turn these upside down, I believe they're actually invisible, so you can make like an invisible trail with these. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure these are the ones that you can use to do that. Somebody let me know in the comments below. But other than that, you just slap them on some walls and you're like, that's my apprentice, the constellation. But yeah, definitely these two items are pretty baller. And shout out to Canny Moss AU. Every time I make a video on something like a side topic, like an ESO housing event, I never know like how much interest there's going to be in that video. So for you guys to say that it gave you the courage to enter that contest and win that contest, that was one of the best messages that I have received. Shout out to you, and shout out to all of you guys for being here on a Friday. I just wanted to thank you again for all of the viewership and just being here and, you know, continuing to help build the community. I absolutely love it, and I owe you. And to our traditional golden vendor now, we're inside our Northern High Rock 8, but if you need help finding any of these bad mammoth jammas, just head on down to ESOhelper.com where we break down these vendors a little bit more. But let's jump into our first item, which is Deadlands Assassin's Amulet. Now, this item comes from Blackwood. It gives you weapon and spell stamina, weapon and spell, and dealing damage to an enemy within 10 meters of you with a heavy attack causes you to throw a cone of knives, dealing physical damage to an enemy, and if an enemy has 50% or less health, they also take additional bleed damage over time. This will scale off your weapon or spell damage. So a whole lot to break down in this set, but it's actually a pretty good set. Also keep in mind too, Zeal's Zenithar puts this at a discount. This set's pretty decent for Nightblades. It's also pretty good for decent heavy attack builds because you're dealing it with a cone of knives. The execute is honestly pretty lackluster though, in my opinion, when it comes to damage. But I do think that there are still significantly better options for Nightblades out there and other stamina-based characters who might want to get into more of the brawler type builds. I would give it like an 8.5. It's a pretty great set, but you're gonna have to complement it with other great sets to really build an 8 out of 10 set for yourself. So I would give this an 8.5. It's good. Wouldn't necessarily buy it to flip it, but it is a fun set. I mean, it's very cool looking. It's thematic, and it gives you a pretty decent buff. So you're getting a 200 weapon and spell damage unnamed buff for a 5-piece, and you're still getting an extra bonus for your other 5-piece as well. So can't complain. Next up is Cradle of Shadows Gossamer. Now this set is actually a bit divisive because some people love it, some people hate it, and it's a bit interesting. Let's break it down. So because it comes from Cradle of Shadows, it is untradeable, but it gives you Magicka Recovery, max mag, and then when you heal yourself or an ally, you grant them major evasion for 4 seconds, reducing damage from area of attacks by 20%. So you can see that there's not really a cooldown you have to worry about this, but you're only getting 4 seconds of uptime. And is major evasion good? In niche situations, it certainly can. There's definitely some utilizations in some pretty narrow in scope dungeons or trials where you might want to constantly have an uptime of major evasion. Generally, I don't think you're going to have to run a set like that. Even in PvP, there's obviously situations where major evasion is helpful because area attacks are kind of all over the place, but you only have a 4-second uptime, so you're going to have to be consistently healed to get through that. How do you stack a set like this? I think it's a good utility set. So I'm just going to go with my good, which is good to me, 7 out of 10. We're going to give it a 7 out of 10. That's probably a little bit low. Some people would definitely argue it's a little bit higher, but that's where I'm throwing it. Next up from White Gold Tower is Essence Thief. Now, I notoriously have been all over the place on this set, so let's just talk about it here very quickly. Gives you stam, weapon and spell, and then dealing damage with a light or heavy attack draws essence from that enemy that pulls near them for 5 seconds. Drawing from that pool heals you, restores some stamina, and increases your damage done by 10% for 10 seconds. A pool can only be created, however, once every 10 seconds. So this set is the cattywampus set of the day. So you're creating a pool under your enemy, so you already have to think to yourself, okay, well, you're going to have to stay in that pool to get healed. So you have to still be in that pool area to get the healing and the restoration of stamina. But by doing that, you're getting health, stamina, and you're increasing your damage done, which are all pretty good things to do. So you could think of some PvE and PvP utilization for that. A couple things though. For PvE, obviously, this is a set that doesn't necessarily synergize super well with dealing damage. This is more one that just synergizes with giving you health and restore stamina. Obviously, 10% of an unnamed buff is very good, but you're also going to have to be a melee DPS character, which has its drawbacks already for PvE. But I do think it's definitely good. It's just not as great as some of the other trial or dungeon sets that we see that are kind of synergistic with PvE. For PvP, it is pretty decent as well, but you have to remember too, you're going to have to be in a pretty consistent area. Thankfully, when stamina characters are fighting each other, they're not running around too much, and the enemy's not going to easily be able to see that you're standing in a pool, drawing and restoring resources. But it's a similar problem where most fights are going to take place over a large area, so you're not going to be able to just sit in a pool with your pool noodles and get a bunch of resources and health and damage given back to you. So how do you rate a set like this? We give it 8.75. It definitely has a lot of cool utilizations. People have sold me on it. Everybody loves this set, mostly. I notoriously have been thinking this is more of like a 7. People have continually articulated to me this is a better set than that. So I'm going to go with their judgment. I haven't personally used it, but I do think it definitely has the ability to be good. You just have to recognize its drawbacks going into it and then build around it when you're kind of synergizing the rest of your build around a set like this, because it is very cattywampus. Next up is from The Reach, Witch Knight's Defiance. It just gives you a weapon and spell for a 2 through 4 and then increases your weapon and spell damage by 369 against enemies inflicted with a poison damage effect. Now, never been easier to poison your enemies with subclassing and scribing and just general ne'er-do-welling, but I'll be honest, 369 weapon and spell damage in today's economy with inflation is just not very good. Even though this is a DLC set, that's not going to be enough for you. However, I will tell you a fun utilization for the set that some people like to do is they don't use it as a full 5-piece. They actually use it as a 4-piece, and then they run something like the Marken Ring and then run some other 3-piece sets, monster sets, or some other sets to kind of synergize with that. So overall, this set I would say is a 7. It's probably it's a low 7, 7.0. It's not 7.5, 7.9. It's really on that tier of like it's almost mediocre, but it's just good enough to be considered good, because that's what a 6 is for me. It's kind of like that above average mediocre set. And to be honest, I just don't recommend a set like this unless you're trying to run some very finicky weapon and spell Marken Ring type build. And that's really the only reason it's rated so highly. If there wasn't that utilization, it probably would be even lower, be closer to like a 6.5. Just because you can get weapon and spell damage from so many different places, but this one thankfully gives it as a 2 through 4 pretty consistently, making it easy to synergize with something like Marken Ring, which wants you to wear essentially 3-piece sets versus other sets. Next up, we will have one of the newest shoulders in the game, because this one actually comes from Luxory. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but it's a cool monster set that gives you weapon and spell, nothing special there. But while in combat, casting an ability that leaves an effect on the ground summons a tentacle at the target's location. After 2 seconds, the tentacle swings wildly in a 5-meter radius, dealing some physical damage and stunning enemies, up to 6 enemies for 3 seconds. Enemies immune to stun take physical damage instead. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds. Now, there's so much experimenting going on with all these new bomber builds and the Necro bombs and the Nightblade bombs and bombs ahoy. Unfortunately, it's hard to know if this set's going to maintain itself in the meta, but I do see this set experimented with quite a bit. If you see yourself dropping AoEs and pulling people and being a bit of a goober for PvP, this could be the set for you. I don't know if it's going to be a staple for bombing or pulling and all that sort of goodness, so I'm just going to give it a 9.0. It's a shoulder. You're saving yourself on Daunted keys. You're getting the ability to do some really fun effects. You're dealing a really good stun. I think this is a really good set, and I think it's only going to get better as we figure out what's the best way to mix and match different subclasses with their passives, their actives, and all the other goodness. So I think this is definitely a set to look out for, and it is on sale. You can get it for cheaper AP or gold. Next up from Scrivener's Hall, another shoulder, is the Oz set, which I just don't want to butcher and pronounce incorrectly for you guys. 1-piece Magic or Recovery, 2-piece Overhealing yourself or an ally grants them 42/72 armor for 1.1 seconds. Healing yourself or an ally also grants them minor vitality, increasing their healing received and damage shield strength by 6%. So this is a really interesting set because it's got 2 good utilizations. We actually have some sets this week that are good for both PvP and PvE, which you don't see super often because generally they're very secluded. But this is great for group PvP healing because you're giving yourself allies armor, which is not affected by Battle Spirit, and you're giving themselves minor vitality, which is also not kind of directly affected by Battle Spirit, but it's kind of a way to kind of subvert Battle Spirit and still give them a really good buff. And it's not one that they're necessarily going to natively be getting. And this is a just pretty good version of a monster set that's used for support play in PvP. But even in PvE, if you're trying to do like, newer trials or learning different, mechanics, this is also a great way to kind of beef up your allies, giving them, a little bit more way to kind of not have to worry about mechanics as much. It's going to affect pretty much everybody there. If the DPS is accidentally getting waxed, they'll have extra armor. The tanks are going to have extra ability to have increasing their healing received and shield strength. So all of those things are going to synergize well. Probably is definitely better as a PvP set, because to me as a PvP set, this is a 10 out of 10. This is a staple of support PvP that I'm really surprised doesn't see more utilization. If you're in a group, you should probably have at least one person running this, and maybe that's why it's not talked about as much, because you're not going to be able to stack this as well, because you can't stack minor vitality, obviously. But it is still something that if you wanted to get into PvP support, this is a great set to start with. So as a quick TLDR for you guys, Deadlands Assassins is definitely a decent set. So is Essence Thief. We talked about their utilizations earlier. Mark and Ring is really the only thing that's propelling Witch Knights to being relevant. Orphelion, if you're thinking to yourself, man, Jake, I want to try out some of this bombing shenanigans, go give it a test out. And the Oz set, if you're like, Jake, I really want to try a PvP support character, I want to be invited to some groups, this is a great set to be able to be invited. And we had our 2 really cool Ayleid items in there that were brand new, in addition to the constellations, but they're probably not going to sell the constellations. But those 2 Ayleid things there, those are going to be really good. And we have a cat that just jumped on top of us. So if that doesn't earn your subscription, a like, or a comment, I don't know what will. But everyone, thank you guys so much again for watching. You guys, as always, are fantastic. I will be telling you we're doing special giveaway drawings going forward on our Golden Vendor videos on Friday. So instead of hiding a hidden word, I'm going to do the most liked comment after probably about 2 or 3 days. That way it takes us to our Tuesday vendor. So I'll pin the top most liked comment. This week, I want you guys to just leave general tips for new players, general tips for people during the event. So go to the comments, leave your best tip below. If you have any good tips, obviously you can leave any comment below. We'll just do the majority wins. But that is kind of the theme that I'm going for this Friday is, what tip would you give people during this event or during this time period or new to ESO? Drop your tips below, and the winner will get a giveaway code. But we have 2 other drawings as well. All you need to do for that is ironically also leave a comment and a like on the video. And the third thing, rather, will just be subscribed. We are less than 200 subs away from 32,000 subscribers. So please hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.